Welcome back, everyone. Let's go and do a quick little comparison between the OnePlus 9 and the iPhone XR. Now, this might be random, but these phones are still brand new in the market, and maybe someone wants to see which one holds up. Who cares? If you want to pick up either one of these, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. Now, side by side, you can definitely see there is a little bit of a difference in the size. The iPhone XR is overall a smaller phone than the OnePlus 9. The iPhone XR is smaller in width and length. In the hand, they feel kind of the same. There really isn't that big of a difference. They both kind of have the same type of setup as well. The iPhone XR on the front has that 6.1-inch IPS panel, and I thought it was pretty good. It's not an OLED or anything. You have the notch up top. But overall, I think it looks like a pretty solid panel. I'm sure most of you know how this panel holds up right now. The OnePlus 9, on the other hand, has that 6.55-inch Fluid 2 AMOLED display. So it's a little bit of an improvement from the previous AMOLED panels that we're getting from OnePlus. The main advantage that you have on this phone that you don't necessarily have on the iPhone XR is that you don't have a notch. You have a hole punch display on this device, but on top of that, you actually have 120 Hz on the OnePlus 9 as well. Do you see that type of difference day to day? I would say, yeah, you would definitely notice a pretty big difference in the refresh rate, but no other iPhones have a higher refresh rate, so there's not really that crazy big of a difference, but the OnePlus 9 definitely has the far better feeling, display for the most part. On the sides, you can see that pretty much the same type of thickness. One doesn't really feel way thicker than the other one. And on the back, both have glass backs. No plastic backs here, thank God. They have the camera setups up top as well. Wireless charging. No reverse wireless charging in either one of these phones. But both of them feel pretty much the same in the hand. Like I mentioned before, one doesn't feel way more premium than the other one. But the OnePlus 9 definitely does look like the more premium phone. And because of that 120 Hz, I would definitely say this is the better looking panel than the iPhone XR for sure. Now, another pretty big difference between these phones is the software. The iPhone XR came out in 2018, the OnePlus 9 just came out, and I would probably say that maybe the iPhone XR and the OnePlus 9 are going to end off around the same time, so one of these phones isn't going to last way longer than the other one, and that's basically a huge up for the iOS device because this thing came out 3 years ago, and this is honestly like on par with the device like the OnePlus 9, which is a really good performing device in terms of software. So one isn't really going to knock the other one out, in my opinion. I feel like they both are going to end off around the same time. But I would say a pretty big advantage that you have with the phone like a OnePlus 9 is the battery life. You'll get like a 4,500 milliamp hour battery on this device. The iPhone XR's battery life, which is a little bit under 3,000 milliamp hours, is still actually fairly big on this device. So you're getting pretty good battery life on both. iOS 14 did take a toll on the iPhone XR a little bit, but I think the OnePlus 9 is still a pretty good performing battery life as well. So when it comes down to it, in terms of the body and the software and the battery life, I would say overall, they're both kind of even, but the OnePlus 9 is probably the better one because of the better display, the better battery life, and just kind of those features in and of itself. But the iPhone XR, for being 3 years old and for being cheaper than the OnePlus 9, is actually still a fairly good deal, and it's still a very good phone in that standpoint as well. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers it up. Now let's go and do a speed test between both of these phones. The iPhone XR has that Apple A12 Bionic chip inside of it with 3 gigabytes of RAM, where the OnePlus 9 has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 888 chipset inside of it with 8 or 12 gigs of RAM depending on the model. This model has 8 gigs of RAM. So let's go and see which one is the faster one between both of these. Okay, now that we're back, let's go and clear all these things out. And as you can see, all the apps are cleared in the background. Let's get started. Let's do phone calls. 3, 2, 1. And about the same, I would say. There was a little bit of a difference there. Animation speed-wise, about the same too. Messages, let's do their app stores. 3, 2, 1. And you can see the OnePlus 9 was like almost instantaneous. The iPhone XR does look like it took a little bit of extra time, but it's totally okay. Getting into the actual scrolling of the speeds, you can see the OnePlus 9 I think seems to be faster. The iPhone XR may have been a little bit smoother, as you can see, but the OnePlus 9 is still a very fast phone too. Their cameras, 3, 2, 1. iPhone XR I think was the faster one there. Hopping out of this one, as always, third-party apps, we have a bunch of them. Let's go and get into it. Fruit Ninja, 3, 2, 1. And it does look like the OnePlus 9 may actually be faster here. And as you can see, the OnePlus 9 was pretty fast. The iPhone XR took a little bit of an extra second or two, but we did get into this other annoying panel. I don't know why it's always like that. Hopping out of this specific app, let's get into the next one, which is Facebook, 3, 2, 1. I think the OnePlus 9 was faster, but the iPhone XR, as always, was just a little bit behind. Getting into Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. And you can see, again, the OnePlus 9 was faster. the iPhone XR is pretty noticeably behind. This is one of those bigger differences that I'm able to see. I'm not really going to say that it's a amazingly crazy difference, but you can see there was a bit of a difference between both of these devices. Getting into some gameplay though, I'm pretty sure they're going to be roughly around the same. But as I mentioned before, that was a pretty big difference between these two devices. So that's a pretty important thing to keep in mind. Hopping out of this one, let's get into the next app, which is Instagram, which I don't have here. Snake versus Blocks, 3, 2, 1. And you can see the OnePlus 9 was faster. iPhone XR a little bit behind. Again, getting into some gameplay. I don't think there's going to be that big of a difference again, but that was quite a bit of a difference before on the other apps. Let's go ahead and do something like Bofa 3, 2, which I don't even have here. A very weird Dropbox 3, 2, 1. OnePlus 9 is faster. iPhone XR a bit behind. Quizlet 3, 2, 1. Again, OnePlus 9 is faster. iPhone XR a bit behind. Behind that one, Snapchat 3, 2, 1. OnePlus 9 I think was faster there. Twitter 3, 2, 1. I don't know what happened here, but I'll load that in the background for RAM management. Let's do Netflix 3, 2, 1. And you can see again the OnePlus 9 was faster. The iPhone XR again was a little bit behind. Now I thought I would have way more apps on the specific device, but I guess I don't. But I think at the end of it, I think the OnePlus 9 was probably the faster phone when it came down to it. I think the iPhone XR is actually still a very fast phone, as you guys were able to see. But I think the OnePlus 9 is probably the faster one. And honestly, I want the OnePlus 9 to be faster. This is a newer phone. It costs way more money, and there should be bigger improvements between these two phones. I feel like the smoothness was about the same. I'm surprised the iPhone XR isn't doing better in the RAM management, or the OnePlus 9 isn't. As you can see, that was one example. The OnePlus 9 was able to keep that app in the background. The iPhone XR did have to restart that app. So that's another kind of minor thing to keep in mind. So in terms of speed, I think that pretty much covers it up. You can see the OnePlus 9 is doing better at RAM management, but the speed and performance was still pretty good on the iPhone XR as well. So in terms of that, that pretty much covers it up. Let's go ahead on the cameras. As I mentioned before, the iPhone XR has that single camera setup, 12 megapixel wide angle lens, where the OnePlus 9 has that wide angle lens and ultra wide sensor, as well as a color filter camera. Now you've probably heard me say this before, but the iPhone XR actually has a very solid camera for a single lens. I've done 5 billion camera comparisons between this thing and many other cameras, and I can definitely tell you, no matter what condition you're in, this is still a very solid camera. You can do 4K at 60 on the back, and you can do 1080p at 60 on the front, which the OnePlus 9 can only do 1080p at 30 on the front. So this camera on the front actually is, I think, better than the front camera of the OnePlus 9, but the iPhone XR's camera is still a very solid pickup, has a lot of capability, and the video quality, everything is just so consistent that this is still, in my opinion, one of the best cameras that Apple has made for a single camera lens. Very important single camera. It's not better than the iPhone 12s, but it's still very good. Now on the OnePlus 9, on the other hand, most of you know, this is also a very solid camera. You can do 8K on the back of this phone. And that is a humongous type of asset that you have, and you're pretty much future-proofed in that standpoint. The UI of this camera is very ugly. I don't know what OnePlus was thinking, and they never do well with their UIs of their cameras. Their software is great except for the camera UI. Like I mentioned, you have this ultra-wide sensor, which I really like. I love having ultra-wide sensors, so that makes it a little bit better than the iPhone XR. But the main thing to keep in mind is that only 1080p at 30 up here. But on top of that, I like the consistency of the Apple's camera. I don't like OnePlus's camera UI. As I mentioned, I think Samsung's cameras are probably the best of that year for every single phone they come out. But I think the OnePlus 9's camera is fairly good. The colors are great. As you can see, there's nothing wrong with the specific camera lens. It just so happens that the specific iPhone XR, I think, is the overall better camera for the front camera and the colors. But the OnePlus 9's camera, for having that additional lens, is probably the better one when it comes down to it. So in terms of the camera, that pretty much covers it up. Now to kind of sum up this video and to answer the question, should you go and buy an iPhone XR or should you buy a OnePlus 9? Well, this is what I'll tell you. I think the answer is quite obvious. If you had all the money in the world, I think the OnePlus 9 is the more flagship device. If I'm thinking about which device is, worth more money or whatever, I think the OnePlus 9 would be the way to go. You're getting a beautiful display, a bigger display, no notch, 120 hertz on this thing, which is crazy. I love having that bigger display. It makes it look a lot better. You're getting more camera sensors on the back, which is huge. And I think overall it's a very good package for an Android phone. And for, I still think, I guess, less than $1,000 phone, this is a very solid option. And I've said that for many years now. But I still think, with the iPhone XR, I'm shocked by how good of a phone this still is. This is a very solid phone. It has so much capability. There's very little to hate on it. I've said it for years now. The iPhone XR is a solid phone. You have a beautiful display, great battery life. You have, a beautiful camera on the front that is probably better than the OnePlus 9's, a great back camera, great build quality, software support that's great, performance is really not that far off from the OnePlus 9. RAM management is better on the OnePlus 9, that's what I saw, but I think the iPhone XR still has a very good amount of life left in it, and it's cheaper by a couple $100s in the brand new market, but it's cheaper even more than that in the used market. I've seen some of these things go for less than like $300 there. So this is a very solid option for both the brand new and the used market. And I think if it came down to both, like I mentioned, I'd probably rather have a OnePlus 9 because it's more of a flagship phone, but the iPhone XR isn't too far off. If this phone was a 10 out of 10, this phone's like an 8 out of 10 in my opinion, probably even like an 8.2 or something like that. So that pretty much covers it up here. Like I mentioned, if you guys want to pick up both these phones, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. If you guys have any other questions or anything, let me know in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys get hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my other channels. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.